Okay, I'm starting to record, so this meeting will be recorded. I'll wait for 30 seconds and then we'll get started. Okay, I'm going to start the session now. Greetings everyone. Welcome to the second quarter 2015 CCHI Radar Refresher Training. This is one of the 4 Radar Refresh training sessions that are provided for April-May 2015 testing and rating. My name is Raj Kapadia and I'm with McCann Associates. We are the technical partners of CCHI on the administration and scoring processes associated with the core CHI and the CHI examinations. Tonight's session will last approximately 30 minutes. Our training will start with a brief overview of the CCHI assessment. This will be followed by Radar Refresh, which will take approximately 20 minutes. At the conclusion, there will be time to ask questions, either McCann or CCHI. And interpretation and sight translation problems are scored. All interpretation and sight translation problems are scored. We use anchored rating scales, which specific quality of the response associated with each score point that the radar assigns. Criteria ratings are randomly inserted during the rating process. This is done to provide a standard measure of quality control of the rating process. All problems are scored by 2 raters. If the raters differ by more than a point, the problem goes to the 3rd rater or the chief, who makes the final score determination for the problem. Now, we are going to discuss the validity of the items and the tests. A job analysis was conducted led by CCHI, which identified the critical knowledge, skills, and activities required for successful medical interpreters. This resulted in the development of a test blueprint which details which skills are critical for the successful performance, how those skills should be measured, and with how many test items. Each test item is explicitly linked to KSA or a knowledge, skill, or activity described in the job analysis report. The test content developers completed the initial linkage, and the CCHI-led subject matter experts verified the content developers' linkages. Item performance is continuously monitored by CCHI with assistance from McCann. It is critical to successful and accurate rating and scoring that the item raters keep in mind at all times during the rating process what the target audience is for the CCHI assessment. To that end, keep in mind that the purpose of the examination is to distinguish minimum proficiency as a healthcare interpreter from lower levels given the target audience, and not to identify masterful interpreters. So, the target audience is a person who is able to perform the functions of an entry-level healthcare interpreter competently and independently in a healthcare setting with the knowledge, skill, and the ability required to relay the messages accurately from a source language to a target language in a culturally competent manner and in accordance with the established ethical standards. Keep in mind too that the entry level means the level required to be able to begin to perform unsupervised healthcare interpreting competently. The CCHI assessment uses the anchored rating scales. A hallmark of the anchor scales is that each score point has associated with it a specific definition. The task for raters is then to evaluate the item they are rating in the context of the anchored rating scales and assign a rating based upon their common interpretation of the definition provided on the scale itself for each level of performance. Anchored rating scales have clear advantages. They are easy and intuitive to use. They provide a very specific feedback to the candidates, and they minimize the rater subjectivity. Very important. The sort of scoring being conducted for the CCHI examination is referred to as performance scoring, which allows the testing of the candidates on complex content requiring a detailed response. In the case of CCHI, the items require examinees to generate a response which is then scored by raters. There are known issues with the performance scoring, such as content is difficult to score, the scoring process inherently has a greater risk of subjectivity, and hence the need for periodic rater refresh trainings, which is very costly primarily due to the cost of the scoring and the raters, and requires human raters who require both ongoing and training as well as monitoring. There are known risks to the high quality of rating, and CCHI takes great efforts to mitigate this risk. Good rating requires sound inter-rater reliability. That is, raters must agree with the ratings of the same test taker's response to an item. To the extent that the raters agree, we have a good inter-rater reliability. And the use of the anchor rating scales and the rater refresh meetings each rating cycle are meant to maintain a good rater agreement. In addition, McCann regularly tracks and reports on rater performance each cycle, making sure that the raters perform consistently. There are known threats to the quality rating, and the raters should keep these potential issues in mind as they conduct their scoring. First, the halo effect. It's a situation in which the positive or the negative performance on one part of the problem and it influences the subsequent ratings. For example, a test taker does very well on the problem and is subsequently rated and viewed positively on all other problems. Central tendency is another issue. It's the failure to differentiate across the candidates, essentially assigning nearly equal ratings to all problems, regardless of actual test taker's performance. Another one is contrast. Contrast is a situation where test taker performance is judged not against the anchored scale, but rather against the performance of other candidates recently tested. And finally, drift. It's a situation that can arise over time when a rater essentially applies different standards or interpretations of the anchored scale over a period of time. Some things to consider as you rate. Are you rating within the guidelines and scoring definitions? Also, do the candidates' errors represent the shift in the meaning? That's very important. Now, the scoring rubric, if you review these things, for each of these four domains, namely the register, lexical content, grammar, and the quality of speech, you have the descriptors associated with each of these four score points, 0, 1, 2, and 3. Basically, this is one of the most important aspects where the anchor rating comes into the picture. Now, we consider some general notes on scoring and applying scores to the items. During your scoring, keep in mind the following. Each score point has a specific meaning, and all rating is to be done with that meaning in mind. A score of 0 indicates that there are changes or errors which render the results inaccurate. A score of 1 indicates that there are changes or errors which shifts the meaning. A score of 2 indicates that there are changes or errors but do not shift the meaning. And a score of 3 indicates that there are no changes or errors. Scoring is not a matter of counting errors, but rather assessing the impact of errors, if they occur, on the meaning. During your rating, if a candidate self-corrects, score their last utterance, regardless of whether it's right or wrong. Such events should be considered as a false start when rating for quality of speech. If you find it helpful to do so, score lexical content first. Finally, keep in mind that the omissions are considered lexical content errors. If the test taker fails to maintain the register of the speaker provider or of the patient, it's an error and should be scored accordingly. Any regionalism used in the response is accepted as correct if this response is free from meaning and grammar errors. There may be situations where the data is missing. Raters need to distinguish between the sources of errors, as the rating task will shift accordingly. If data are missing due to technical reasons, do not penalize the candidate. If the responses for the rest of the problem are sufficient, score. This does not concern key issues related to scales, medical terms, terms of arts, or colloquialisms. Mark utterances that are absent for technical reasons are inaudible when appropriate. If you cannot score, mark the problem as cannot be rated. On the other hand, if the data is missing due to the candidate reasons, candidates may be penalized. If 50% or more is missing and the response cannot be rated, mark the box cannot be rated and write a comment in the notes box. This documentation is important and must be noted. If the data are missing due to candidate reasons, candidates may be penalized. For example, the candidate space is too slow, or there are too many self-corrections or false starts that result in the candidate not completing the message or running out of time. If 50% or more is missing and the response cannot be rated, mark the box cannot be rated. Write a comment in the notes box to specify why. For example, too many self-corrections, ran out of time, etc. Now for some oral reminders on the rating process. Each rater is expected to work individually. We have discussed the rating system and the need for raters to agree. In terms of where we see the greatest variability in terms of the ratings, we need to be clear that overall raters demonstrate strong, consistent agreement across all rating activities. If there is one area where there is slightly more variability, it will be in the domain of lexical content. Grammar, register, and the quality of speech are similarly consistently rated. McCann and CCHI jointly review the rater's performance at the end of each testing window. We considered 3 pieces of information in this process. How well the raters agreed with each other or their peers. Second, how often did individual raters acquire a judge compared to the group overall? And the third, how variable were a rater's ratings? If you have not heard from CCHI, it means that your rating has fallen within the range of the standards set for the rater performance and so you're doing okay, so congratulations. Your comments on candidates' responses are very important. If you assign a score of 0 or 1, you must provide a comment. Chiefs must provide comments for all responses. Comments if the candidate has really poor skills of keeping the meaning and finding the equivalent comments if a candidate has a poor command of grammar. Comment if a candidate mostly does not maintain register, replaces colloquial expressions with the neutral ones or the vice versa. Objectivity in scoring is extremely critical because each of the languages CCHI certifies is spoken in multiple locations, often resulting in many variants in the same language. CCHI has recruited raters from a broad spectrum of countries. Objectivity is also ensured by having multiple raters rate each candidate. As many as 14, the use of multiple well-trained raters ensures that a candidate's rating is free from many well-known rater effects, as well as other threats to the objectivity. As a final measure, in cases where the raters fail to agree, a judge is used to determine the candidate's rating. Collectively, these measures ensure that the ratings for the CCHI exams are free from bias and as representative as possible of the candidate's true level of performance. Now, CCHI wants each candidate to be rated by multiple raters, and so please follow these following steps. Do your workload as soon as the rating period starts. That is, right when the testing window is over. When you are done with the workload, email McCann and Natalia, wait for further instructions. Don't rate more than 2 or 3 responses for any one candidate. If a candidate seems similar or familiar, they likely are, return that item to the pool and move on to the next one. Note that for Arabic raters, you should rate no more than 4 or 5 items for candidates. Follow McCann's instructions regarding the initial workload at the beginning of the testing cycle that I'm going to be showing you in the next few slides. The workloads are different for different languages. Spanish starts on May 10, 2015. Rating starts 180 vignettes and then wait until the Beth emails you from McCann. For Arabic and Mandarin, again start on May 10th. 40 vignettes for Arabic and 20 for Mandarin. And then wait until the Beth emails you. In the McCann scoring tool, please note that the following will make it possible for you to identify a candidate. This is to help ensure that you don't rate more items from the same individual than is permissible. The user ID, session ID is equal to the candidate, meaning the response equates to the candidate's interpretation of a specific vignette. Try not to rate more than 4 vignettes that have the same user ID value. Now, for the description of the Americans with Disability Act, I'm going to turn over this slide to Natalia for her comments.
Thank you, Raj. Just as a reminder, if we have candidates who have low vision or are blind, we provide a human reader as a way of accommodating their disability. And because of that, the exam is administered differently. So you may hear during the candidates' recordings certain commands like stop, next, repeat during all sessions of the exam. But specifically when it comes to sight translation, it is done differently. The human reader will be reading the text to the blind candidate, so you may hear that English text in the recording already. and the candidate will be interpreting that simultaneously. They have certain rules, how many times they can ask for repetition of certain segments of a sentence or the whole sentence. So again, you may hear the command, please repeat, etc. Just ignore the commands. Don't penalize the candidate for using these extra words. Also, because it is site translation is done in this simultaneous mode and it's harder that way, the candidate may run out of time to record the complete interpretation. If you have at least 50% of the utterance and you're able to score, please go ahead and score. And also, if you score, and make sure that you put a note that the candidate ran out of time. At this time, we're not sure if there will be any candidates this testing window. No, there are about 2 who are trying to schedule the exams who will require human reader. That's why I wanted you to, pay attention to that. And during this testing windows, all human readers are not raters. So there will be no need to, for any of you to refrain from rating. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Next. CCHI owns the policies. All questions are addressed directly to them at the context provided on the few slides that I'm going to show you later. McCann is to be contacted only for the customer support, scoring problems, or questions specific to the scoring process itself. The contacts for McCann are included also in the same deck in the next couple of slides. If you have technical issues during the rating process, there are different contacts depending upon the time of the day. During normal customer support hours, email McCann and the address provided on this slide. Do not, let me repeat, do not email the entire group. After normal customer support hours, you can email McCann and the address is provided on this slide. Do not, again, send it to everybody in the whole group. So, to reiterate when the raters can begin this rating, the magic date is May 10th. The testing window started on 4/20, will end on 9th of May, and the rating begins on May 10th. One more thing, in contrast to the last several testing windows, rating will not parallel to the testing window. You must wait until the May 10th to start the rating. The testing window, again, like I said, is from 28th of April through 9th. The rating deadline is 26th, and the chief's rating deadline is 29th. This pretty much concludes the presentation portion of our session. Now we're going to open the floor to any questions that you may have for either CCHI or for McCann.
Well, let me make sure I catch everyone on the call and do a roll call. So I have Chiaru, Dana, Jason, Sharon, and Sulyan.
Yes.
Is there anyone else on the phone who I didn't see? I mean, say and don't see. Okay, great. And I just wanted to reiterate that new way of doing it, and it's kind of an old way. That's how we started rating originally, and we're trying it again. So the reason is we want to make sure that each candidate is scored by as many raters as possible. And this way, when the testing window ends and you are able to start rating when you have the whole pool available to you, computer will randomly produce for you the responses that you can rate. And so there's more objectivity in the process. Also, you don't have to log in multiple days. If you wish, if you have the time, you can log in on May 10th and rate all your workload. You know, Spanish probably will have to stay up 24 hours, right, to rate all the 180 vignettes. But the point is, we really would like you to do it as quickly as possible from May 10th. And we hope we finish before May 26th, but 26th is a hard stop. And this way the chiefs can start rating on the 20th of May, because I think by the 20th of May there should be already enough items to chief. If not, Beth and I will be monitoring the situation, and then I will email the chiefs, Beth or I will email the chiefs saying that you have the items to rate. But we hope that this will be a more concise and an easier manageable rating period, and will run more smoothly. Also, we never anticipate any IT issues, but sometimes they pop up. If start scoring whichever way you're doing, you know, using whatever browser you normally use. If for any reason something doesn't work, switch to a different browser and see if it helps. If not, then go ahead and email me and Beth, actually Beth more importantly, and attach a screenshot of what kind of message you are getting. And the last comment I wanted to make is we are checking how you rate consistently by adding some responses that you've already rated. So if you hear something that you think you rated last semester, you're not last window, you're not going crazy. In fact, you may have rated this item before, but it is done intentionally. So if something pops up into your view and you pull it up, go ahead and rate it, even if you feel you've already done it like a year ago or a testing window ago. This is all on my end. Do you have any questions? Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Raj. Thank you, Beth. You know, we have some time till May 10th, but after that, please go ahead and start. And if you have any questions, email us.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we did have evaluations for this year, so if I'll be contacting whoever I need to contact if there are any comments. But in general, we're doing all good. Dana had a question. That's why I'm answering her. Everyone is doing very good. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night.
Okay, thank you.
Good
Bye-bye.
night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.